Welcome. Today's video is going to be about calibration, how to calibrate your Snomax injection system. And really, I want to start out by talking about the importance of why you want to know how to calibrate your Snomax injection system. And in that brings us to the idea of you have to use the precise rate. You need to use Snomax exactly as how it's posted on the back of the bag. You need to use it at a ratio where you're not using too much or you're not using too little, because you have to use it the precise ratio to get the best financial benefit out of the product. We're going to be going through today, we're going to be going through our largest system, our mid-size system, and our smallest system, because they vary a little bit on how to do the calibrations. But I also thought I'd have this prop here to show you. A lot of the older injection systems that are out there are using a calibration system very similar to this, where you've got your water coming in from your tank here, and you've got your water coming out to the injection hose. And what happens really is when you close this valve, suddenly this becomes the tank, and you're reading these readings as the water is dropping. So all of our systems, all these different systems use the same principle. The valving and the piping looks a little different, and yours may look a little closer to this, or it may have been modified over the years and it looks nothing like this. But we'll get into the actual how the calibration column works and what it does on each of these systems and how it might differ on yours. The first system we're going to show today on how to calibrate is our smallest system. So the step one in this is to get the pump running. So we're going to start the pump. Takes a second for it to come on. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to make sure there's no air anywhere in the plumbing or especially the head of the pump. So to do that, I'm going to open a bleed valve. That's going to bypass the liquid from the system and dump it into the top of the calibration tube. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to look in here to see, are there any bubbles? And once it's running a clear stream of water and Snomax, you can shut that off. And as soon as I shut it off, you'll hear the pitch of the motor change as it builds up pressure going against the mounting pressure. So now, the theory behind what we're doing is we're going to use these yellow hash marks on the side of the calibration tube to show how much volume the pump is pumping. Right now, it's using the tank to show the level of the Snomax in the tank. But when I close this valve down here, the liquid in the tube begins to drop. And you see that dropping here. So we're going to reset it, and then I'm going to use my phone to time it. So I like to use round numbers that are easy to remember in your head, so I'm not even going to start timing until we get to 500 milliliters on this graduated cylinder. And the reason we're going to do that is because today I'm saying that you're going to be pumping 1,000 gallons a minute, so I'm going to want to go all the way down to 1,500 in 1 minute. And depending on whether we get there too soon or we don't get there soon enough, that'll tell us that we need to speed up or slow down the pump. So I'm going to close that valve. Now I've got lots of time because it hasn't dropped there yet. I'm going to bring my phone up. I'm going to hit start right when it hits 500. And now I like to hold it down to where the projected is, just to see whether we're high or low. And we watch that level dropping in the tube. We got to basically where we're supposed to be in 30 seconds, and we should have taken a whole minute to get there. So I'm running twice as hot. So I'm going to want to go over here and adjust the speed of the pump downward, and then we're going to open the valve, let it flood it back up again, and then we're going to do another calibration, and we're going to keep doing this. It might take you 5 or 6 attempts using the timer. Your watch is probably the easiest, to get it so that you hit the exact mark you want. And you really need to be precise on this. You want to do it as many times as it takes to get the mark on it. And I like to have somebody do the double check on this once a shift. All right, so the pump is running a little slower. Now I'm going to look here, we're going to pick the spot, I'm going to close the valve. Start it when it hits 500. And I'm going to hold my phone down here at 15, and we'll see how close we can get this column to be here in exactly 1 minute. And there we're at. We hit the number exactly at 1 minute. We started by showing you on our smallest system how to calibrate the system. We went into the greatest level of detail on this one because if your injection system that you have at your sea area doesn't look exactly like one of these three, I think the principles that we showed you on this one will most closely match what we showed you here. So on this one, with our touchscreen and automated ball valves, we don't need to turn the lead valves. So all we're going to be doing in this system is we're going to be interacting with the three-way valve and the calibration column. So on this one, what we're going to do is we're going to start up the pump. It's going to take a second or two for the pump to turn on. And then we're going to let these valves cycle. So they're going to take a second or two to rotate and get into the right orientation so that we've bled them out automatically. And now that the air is out of the pump, I'm going to come over here and we do the same thing we did on the smaller system. I'm going to pick a nice even number. So I want to use 500 as a marking on this calibration tube, just because it's a nice round number. And we're going to be simulating that we're pumping against 2,000 gallons of snowmaking water. So we're going to need to measure from 500 down to 2,500, and we're going to see what that does in 1 minute. So I've got my phone ready to do a timing. So I'm going to close the valve. I'm going to bring my phone up here, put it next to the 500, and as soon as it hits 500, I'm going to hit start. Now I'm going to drop my phone down, and I'm going to hold it right at 2,500, and we're going to see in 1 minute, in exactly 1 minute, we should be at 2,500 milliliters a minute. If we get here too soon, I need to slow the pump down. If we don't get there in time, I need to speed it up. So this is why it'll take you many attempts to try and get this thing to be exact, but we're going to see how quick we get on our first try. And that's pretty spot on. All right, so we're moving on from our mid-size system up to the largest injection system in the Snomax fleet. This system has automated ball valves in the back that you can't see. It has a three-way valve, just like the last one we went to, but you can't see it, they're underneath. And the calibration column, just the same. So on this one, we're gonna start the pump. Since I'm simulating that we're pumping also against 2,000 gallons a minute, I've set up the pump maximum speed to be what I think is pretty accurate for that number. So it should match the other one. So we're going to go up here using the same technique we used on the last one on the calibration column. So I'm going to close this valve. When it hits 1,200 here, I'm going to hit the start button. And we're going to drop this down. And because we used on the last pump, we set it for 2,000 gallons a minute, we're probably going to hit this pretty close. So I'm going to come down here, and we're trying to hit, since we start at 1,200, so for 2,000 milliliters a minute, we need to hit 3,200 on the scale. And you can pick any point in the scale anywhere you want when you're using it. It's just, I try to pick round numbers because it's easier for me to keep track of it in my head. And especially if you've been making snow for 17 hours, you walk into a warm building, and now suddenly I'm asking you to do math while your brain is frozen. And so it helps me. So we're getting there, we're at 45 seconds, we're bringing ourselves down. It looks like it's gonna hit just where it needs to be at 60 seconds, which shouldn't be a shock because we use the same adjustment on this pump as we did the pump on the mid-size system. Boom, and that's spot on, that's exactly what you want. So one thing to remember is after you're done doing the calibration, don't forget, you've gotta put this valve on all of our systems, you got to put the valve back in its resting state. Otherwise, you're not pumping out of the tank anymore, you're only pumping out of here. When this runs dry, the Snomax injection stops. So it's really important on all three of our systems to make sure to reopen the valve that separates the tank from the calibration tube.